Guys, thank you so much to all of you for being here on a school night on a Monday. Really appreciate you guys coming out to what we're calling like our Kwanda activation. In fact, we gave tonight a specific, someone like me with a list probably wouldn't have called it Genesis on my own, but Kieran decided we're calling tonight our Genesis event. And the reason for that is because it's our hope and genuine belief that tonight's going to play a really important role in the eventual success of Kwanda, and I'll explain in a bit why we hope that. So for those that don't know me, I did forget the name tag thing. My name's Chris, Kieran over there, along with Ubundi as our venture partner. We're embarking on this journey. Before I start, just some basic housekeeping. We really wanted tonight to be an evening to be enjoyed. We were very intentional about not booking like a conference center type venue. We wanted to book somewhere where you feel like you're in someone's lounge. So please enjoy the drinks, enjoy the pizzas that are coming in a bit, and most importantly, enjoy each other's company. There's some really, really interesting people in the room. You're all doing interesting things, so meet one another and mingle. So please do enjoy. If we've got any competitors here, the beer's on consignment, so help yourselves. It'll eat into our funding runway. To tell you a quick story about how Kwanda came to be very briefly, I want to place us quickly. So some of you may have met tonight or heard of AD Pino. AD is over here. He's joined us this evening. And AD previously founded a business called WooCommerce, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. It's the world's second biggest e-commerce platform, and subsequently did a few other ventures where he raised a bunch and exited, namely Conversio and Cogsy. About 8 months ago, I was chatting to AD at an event, and I said to him, "What's next? Has that itch come back to build again?" And the smile of a stoutgat boy crept across his face, and he said, "Yes, it has." And I said to him, "Well, so what are you building?" AD's a deeply patriotic guy, and he said to me it's really bothering him how the biggest technological revolution of our time, obviously AI, all the benefits, both economic and otherwise, are accruing to the West, particularly the States. And we're seeing very little of that benefit here in South Africa. We're not building here, we're not building for the South African context. And he explained to me he wanted to move the needle on that. And so I said to him with somewhat lofty ambition, what's your plan? How do you plan on moving that needle? And he explained to me he wanted to build Ubundi. And AD has gone out and built Ubundi. It's operationalized Ubundi. And what Ubundi is a venture studio based out in Stellenbosch. And I'll add that it's the most incredible, physical studios in an incredible space. But what AD's done is he's hired 8 of the top engineering and AI and ML talent in the country, and these 8 guys and girls, along with AD, are going to go out and conceptualize between 10 and 12 AI-centric products a year and graduate 2 of those, approximately two or three of those businesses into fully fledged businesses as spin-outs. And when he did the application process for those 8 spots at Ubundi, he was pretty overwhelmed by the level of quality and talent of the individuals that applied. I think if AD had had his way, he would have hired 45 people and not just 8. And so he came to us and he said, "Guys, look at this talent that's out there. Look at what's available. Look at all these young individuals desperate to build cool stuff and the most exciting technological revolution around. And they're all in South Africa. Let's harness this talent." And so we set out to build Kwanda, which goes some way to harnessing that talent, and I'll tell you in a bit how we intend to do that. But for now, it's important to know that we're very lucky with Kwanda that we're backed by Ubundi, and that means, as a business, we have access to some of the top technical talent, both within Kwanda, within Ubundi, and within its greater orbit. So I think we can all agree there's a huge amount of noise out there around AI at the moment. You can hardly open LinkedIn or Twitter or opening. Do we need to close? Is it fine? With Southeaster, we could, okay. You can hardly open LinkedIn, Twitter, or a newsletter these days without being shouted at that AI is either going to end the world or save it, and there's strap lines like master AI before it masters you, or if you don't implement AI in your workflow by next Tuesday, you'll become obsolete, these kind of things. And the reality is that at the moment, there's just so much out there, it's actually hard to hear anything that's actually useful. And I think it's in this environment that SMEs in South Africa find themselves in. So when I'm going to refer to SMEs and businesses more generally a lot, but when I make those comments, I'm not referring to your ShopRites and your Capitechs of the world. I'm talking about those businesses that are like your true backbone of our economy, actually. So whether it's like an independent building contractor, or whether it's a GP, a doctor working on his own, or even Bacini's across the road, or this venue that has a calendar that has to handle bookings, that sort of a thing. These businesses know that AI is one day going to become as ubiquitous as even Wi-Fi is in most businesses. They know they need to implement these tools. And I think for many of them, 25 was a year of reading about these tools, tinkering with them a little bit, trying to get a better learning. And 26 for a lot of them is the year they're saying, we're going to implement AI this year, and we've got to bring AI into our workflows. In fact, I'd bet that a lot of strat sessions at the beginning of this year and first board meetings and a lot of these kind of businesses started with, guys, how are we going to implement AI into our business this year? And I thought at this point it'd be quite useful for me just to give some broad examples of where some of these businesses could potentially bring AI into their businesses, some use cases and some areas where there may already be room for improvement and where some help might be useful. And when I do this, take mental notes about how it could be applicable in what you guys are doing. So I know a lot of you in the room do form part of those kind of businesses. Got a lot of people here from medium-sized law firms and that sort of thing. So just make a note. So the first one is probably an area where they could need help. And to my mind, it's the lowest hanging fruit. I call it the human element, but in plain English, it's training. It's staff training, upskilling your staff base on what is out there and what AI tools are available to make them more productive. The most obvious example would be prompt training, helping people prompt better. They're probably all using AI. A lot of it's probably shadow AI use that maybe not sanctioned by their directors. Some of you shifting in your seats. But there's a huge difference between a good prompt and a bad prompt. And having someone come and help you for 3 hours understand how to prompt better can really deliver outsized outcomes to your employee base, because a better prompt means you get a better output, means you're spending less time fixing that output. And then there's the sort of boring operational stuff that you can automate. So the kind of stuff that's eating into the mundane tasks that we all have to do, but they're eating into your ability to actually bill hours. So if I take a law firm example for the attorneys in the room, or specifically litigation and conveyancing, we all know that most emails, the subject line is the case number. And we spend a lot of time filing those into proper inboxes or the right inbox. You can easily build something that scrapes your inbox and knows exactly where to file each email and then ranks those emails on perceived urgency. Or, for example, a doctor, a GP. I know a lot of doctors listen to a consultation, take notes, and then have to spend 20 minutes after that consultation updating their patient management system, whether it's uploading Trello cards or that sort of a thing. Again, you can build a system that automatically transcribes that consultation, understands you as the doctor's context, understands the patient's context, and automatically uploads that consultation into Trello or whatever else you're using, saving you extra time to either see 2 more patients in the day, or if you're Maria, go for a longer jog after work. And then there's that sheer volume of data stuff. So the stuff that there's so much data, it would take a human so long to get through it. But again, we have to sift through the stuff, but you'd rather be doing more valuable, rather be using your time more valuably. So an example would be a VC firm that has most VC firms have specific metrics and baseline metrics where they'll only look to invest on investment mandate, but they probably still 90% of the pitch decks they receive fall outside that mandate. So you could build something, and some head of investments or somebody has to sift through these and find the ones that are worth considering, where you could build a system that takes a pitch deck that comes in a PDF, we automatically run it through the system, and it filters out those 5 pitch decks that you should be paying attention to, the ones that meet your investment thesis, the ones where the addressable market size is big enough to meet the kind of businesses you typically invest in. And the last example I'll use, which, well, if you hate something, is it far from your heart? Because a discovery affidavit is not something that was close to my heart. For those of us young attorneys that have had the chance to, or the displeasure of having to do one, it often means sifting through thousands and thousands of documents over weeks and pulling out certain specific information. That's something we could so easily run through a system and can pull out that essential information, and you can have a discovery affidavit in 5 minutes and not 5 weeks. So we've had a look. We know there's this anxiety amongst SMEs, this panic. They kind of know they need to bring this stuff in. We know it can work for them. We know there are use cases. They know that. But these kind of businesses are kind of left out at the moment. There's to hire a big international consultancy is too expensive, it's overkill. Similarly, to hire a head of AI is probably not the right move. Again, probably don't have the resources for that, or it doesn't make sense. But they're too big to get someone to do it in-house. They really need some help, and there's no one currently servicing that market. We're calling it an implementation gap. They know what they need to implement, they just don't know how to go and do that. And so that's why we're building Kwanda, to bridge that implementation gap for these kind of businesses. And I can try position Kwanda in a few ways. I can say it's a fractional head of AI. I can call it a quasi-agency or consultancy, or I can call it a managed marketplace for AI enablement services. But to cut the semantics and to be practical, what we want to build is your general contractor for AI. So what we want is to create a setup where you can come and tell us in plain English what your problem is. Tell us you're spending 4 hours a week filing emails into the right inbox. Or say I simply don't have time to go through all the 500 pitch decks I get and filter out the right ones. And we can then analyze that problem, have a look at where AI is a solution, and crucially where it isn't. It's not a fix-all. And then build that solution for you. And this is where that talent I referenced earlier, and our access to that talent becomes really, really important. We're the key to that door. Because of the relationships we formed with the top AI talent in the space, both within Ubundi and around its orbit, we can assign the perfect individual to help build that solution for you. But crucially, Kwanda remains the merchant of record. We take responsibility for the end delivery of that solution. So you're not managing a freelancer, you're dealing with Kwanda, and we deliver a working solution to you, and we make sure that solution's working. So ultimately, we want to take these businesses from conceptualizing things in strategy sessions to actually implementing AI in their everyday workflows. Could stand you here all day and promise you the world, which I'm not going to do. Instead, I'm going to go to the show part of this show and tell and ask Kieran to come up. Just to briefly introduce Kieran, who's more on the technical side of Kwanda. Kieran's one of those guys who's been playing with AI before it was cool. I actually haven't asked him. He probably bought Bitcoin in like 1885 or something. Played with frankincense and myrrh or whatever. But Kieran's an electromechanical engineer by training. He did a master's with Sony in Sweden, looking at some early computer vision models. He then spent 5 years at Explore AI in various senior capacities there, which I know was very formative for him. And in 2024, broke away and started his own AI consultancy and built the kind of tools, which he's going to show you very briefly in a second. Over to you, Kieran.
Okay. As a simultaneous head of marketing and technical director, I need to make sure that these things are recording so that we actually have some collateral to thank after this evening. Thanks, Chris. Very, very well delivered. And the ChatGPT introduction that you gave of me appears to be as flattering as I thought it might be, because there wasn't much to actually say about me. And I did buy Bitcoin in 1885, and I sold it in a blind panic in 1886. So I was forced to take up data science, and that's where I stand today. So maybe I can thank that opportunity. As it happens, I can be very grateful tonight to say that all of my former employers are here, and significant clients, consulting clients of the last couple of years. So if you do go into business with us, you can rest assured that there will be a cordial business relationship for years to come, and it will be fun and amicable for as long as it needs to be. The same cannot be said, however, for all of my last 2 romantic relationships, which are on the other side of some terribly burned bridges, but that's a story for another time. Right, so I'm the technical director at Kwanda. It's a title. It really doesn't mean much. Because it's just Chris and I, 2 of us in total, and the business is 4 days old, what it actually means is I'll probably do technical stuff for 1 hour a week, and for the other 79, I'll be just making sure that we don't die. I'd like to get to some demos very quickly. That's what I've got lined up for us, but just a couple of, maybe to try and add to the credibility of Kwanda so far by saying a couple of things. So Chris mentioned I worked at a business called Explore AI. I owe a lot of my learnings from my career to my 5 years there. And one thing that I remarked on often was how the marketing material always said that we had like 25 or 30 happy clients. And it said that from day one, which was obviously impossible. So there was an element there of faking it till you make it. And I love that side of things. So I just wanted to jump to some of our happy clients that we've had so far. This Enron was a big one in the late 90s for us, and we've done great work with the stalwart clients of Home Affairs. Their systems are, I think, world class at the moment. So with the credibility in place, I'd like to jump over to a couple of demos. So Chris spoke sort of lightly about a few of the solutions that we could implement. There's 3 demos that we've prepared, and they're each specific to a business or an industry or a niche. But I'd ask you, as you watch them, to try and imagine how that sort of technology or application could be useful to the tasks that you and your team are doing on a daily basis. There's really like an infinite number of solutions that you can build, and it really comes down to what problem is causing you the biggest headache at the moment, and how should we go and solve that with a little bit of AI. So live demos are an extremely risky thing, so I'm not sure whether this is going to work first time, but let's give it a go. Also, if the text is too small on any of them, for the people at the back, please shout, and we'll hope for the best. So the first demo is what we'll call an automated to-do list generator or to-do items generator. And this came about because I built it for Georgia, who's my business partner in an agency that we've been running from Amsterdam. I built it for her last year because she has the problem, if you will, is that she has a recurring meeting with a client that she runs marketing campaigns for. And in this meeting, it's probably too short and too dense compared to what it needs to be. And she ends up with all of these action items, and there's a lot of like, yes, we'll circle back to that later, and okay, I'll follow up with that, and we've got to end that campaign, increase the budget on this. There's money on the line because we're paying the ads platforms big money to run the ads for them for their clients. So it's better to be able to sit in a meeting, as we all know on a video call, it's like already a bit of a mundane thing anyway, and internalize what's being said, than note things down and try and make sure that you're like getting everything and following up for later. We've all got AI note takers that annoyingly join all of our calls. We use Granola in our business, but you might use Fireflies or Otter. Google Workspace has their own one now. So what this solution does is it's triggered by the end of a video call. So this will be a familiar screen. You've waved awkwardly at the camera to say goodbye to your associates, and this process triggers the storing of this transcript of this meeting in a dedicated folder for this client, which Granola does. I mean, we're not affiliated with Granola. Maybe we should be, but it's a very good product. I can recommend it. And as the transcript lands in that folder, it triggers an automation which gets sent through a Gemini model. Remember, like, keep your mind open in your business. It might be a Copilot model. It might be OpenAI. It might be Anthropic, depending on what tech you use. And it looks at the transcript and it breaks it down into a set of tasks, assigning each one a headline, a description, an urgency, and categorizes it with a label as well. And then it sends all of those in the right format to our task management solution of choice. We use a system called Trello, where you get a sort of Kanban board layout like this. Tickets are added into columns. And on occasion, if the model has a high enough confidence that some tickets or tasks that already existed were completed, or someone in the call mentioned, yes, I've done that, I've taken care of that task, that was the last thing that happened there. It will also move tickets from in progress to done, which it did over here. So it's created a whole lot of tasks associated with Georgia as the person who needs to carry them out, and it's assigned in the urgency and other categorization labels. So this might be an Asana or Basecamp or Monday.com or Notion for you, whatever you use for your project management. We use Trello, but really it's, these workflows are sort of tool agnostic, and you can actually, you can plug and play things in and around that model. I'm going to sort of lean more on the idea now of this generic business called Meridian Partners, which I'm going to use as the sort of company that has all of these tools working in-house for them. And Meridian is, if you can just let your imaginations run wild for a bit, is a vast conglomerate, and it has a lot of different offerings. So for this one, Meridian is actually a venture capital firm, and that's the nature of the demo that we or the content subject matter of this demo. The problem with this one, Chris alluded to this, and it was a really nice sort of segue into it, is a venture capitalist or venture capital fund, especially a popular one, is going to be receiving a lot of pitch decks, investment opportunities sent to them via email on a monthly basis. In industry parlance, I believe you say high deal flow. I looked that up. And in such high volumes, hundreds or 500 odd a month, that it's not feasible for a human to go through that. It's also not probably the best use of a human's time. So the obvious solution, or let's say the obvious opportunity there, is to use an AI model to leverage its ability to process vast amounts of unstructured data. Something that takes humans, an hour to read through 15 slides can be done in seconds by a model. The other great thing about it is that you can be sure that it's doing it, with not fatiguing between each step, and it's applying the same rigor and skill to every pitch deck that it reviews. Whereas a human over the course of a day might be tired now and focused then and not. So this is a visualization of what the tool is solving, and it's an inbox for the general partner, say at a venture capital firm, filling up with pitch decks, investment opportunities. You want to pay each pitch deck the due that it deserves, because there might be the next 100 bagger in there that you want to make sure that you don't miss out on. But it's just not possible to get through this to get through your inbox. So what this automation does is, in the background, it's triggered by an email that comes in with terminology that satisfies a condition like pitch deck, investment opportunity, something like that, and that also has a PDF or something attachment to that effect. It sends the PDF to, I'm just going to zoom in here, to an AI engine. Believe it or not, this is not actually what it looks like. I've spruced this up for the benefit of the evening. And each pitch deck is then sent through this engine with the lens of, okay, does this pitch deck meet our investment criteria or not? And investment criteria might be your annual recurring revenue must be between $2 and $5 million. It must be a high growth company over the last 3 to 5 years. It must be in these sorts of sectors. And in AI models, you're probably familiar with the idea that when you want a model to run over and over again and always apply the same ruling or set of rules or reference criteria, you modify what's called its system prompt. So the system prompt here is just as I've said. You are an XYZ. In this case, it's an expert at analyzing pitch decks, and you've inputted the criteria like the ARR, the growth, and what margins it must have and what sectors it operates in. So it does that with every pitch deck, and then it makes a decision. It categorizes them according to a RAG system, red, amber, green, and it ends up in a review pane like this, where you've got now structured data from, you could imagine 500 disparate pitch decks where the information was all over the place in each of them. And it's now structured and given a definitely go ahead with this one, maybe don't go ahead with that one, and there's some definite declined ones as well. So that, you can imagine a hiring manager making use of something like that with hundreds of CVs coming in. You can imagine an engineering firm or a law firm with technical documents of dozens of pages that would take you a very long time to read through, and you probably miss things, but with the rigor that a model can apply, it can allow you to extract all the sorts of business information that you need from documents. So that's demo 2, and the last one is quite a cool one, and I think it's widely applicable. I think all businesses could use something like in the form that you're going to see it here, and we're going to call this an internal knowledge retrieval agent, or a knowledge storage and retrieval agent. It's called Nexus. And this has been deployed in Meridian Partners by Kwanda. We had to actually jettison Home Affairs in order to create capacity to serve this client. But perhaps good riddance there, as it turns out. So the problem that we're addressing here is that in businesses, employees and all the team members are trying to access information all the time. It's a document that they need to send to a new client. It's what is the positioning of the business in the brand guidelines? Can I get a logo? Maybe it's even access to internal databases like leave policies and how much leave I have left. What was my last review, sort of thing. And then there's also the problem of is that document that's just been sent to me, is it the latest one? And then across all of this, it's in most cases just a waste of time to go through like long email threads waiting for requests to be fulfilled, and someone might be on leave and non-responsive and so on. So there's a lot of instances in which something like this might be useful. And Nexus has got a sort of a chatbot interface. I think that's the de facto interface of the moment. People are quite comfortable now with getting a lot of value out of a relatively basic prompt these days. A couple of historic chats down the left-hand side. And I'm going to dive straight in and demo the capability of Nexus by giving it four prompts of, I guess, varying complexity and relevance. I'm not going to type this just because live demos always go wrong, so I'm going to transcribe. So just don't talk while I'm talking so that it types down the right thing. So for the first one, let's say it's a legal professional working in a law firm, and they've got a client who they need to send a new lease agreement to, their own internal template of a lease agreement, and it must be the most relevant one. I need for a client a new lease agreement. It must be the latest version of our internal lease template. So I'm going to send that. And the message that I get back is very basic. Here's an attachment, and this is the PDF for me to download. So rather than go through the data room, which might be Google Drive or something of that nature in your business, and it's disorganized and no one knows who's the actual author of everything, this is the de facto centralized store for this thing. Another example might be CEO or someone from Exco or sales director. They need some performance data for the last quarter. Show me the sales performance across all divisions for the last quarter in South African rands. So it's generated an interactive graph for me. Meridian is doing fairly well, I would say, 8.5 million rand over the last quarter. And then I guess another sort of more trivial one. Maybe you don't want to hassle your HR manager, and so you want to find out how much leave you have left. How much leave do I have left in this financial year? So this is obviously going to be connected under the hood to the leave database or the leave payroll system that your company uses, and that will have accurate, up-to-date data. I should add here that this would be like a user-authenticated system, such that not everyone has access to all of the same data. You would want a junior-level associate to be shielded from sensitive information like sales, for example, but the CEO would have access to far more information. Lastly, I'm feeling competitive, so tell me how I'm tracking for Employee of the Month this month. Okay, it's not looking good. I'm in 9th. I've soiled the office microwave. I beat the CEO in a 5K run over the weekend, and I replied to an all-hands email with unsubscribe. Okay, so not looking particularly good. So that, I think, is a widely applicable implementation for any business that has, I guess, 2+ employees. And under the hood, to make this work very briefly, you'd have a model that you interface with that has access to a set of tools. So a tool might be a database query, or querying the sales data that might be in Xero or some other performance software that you use. So you can really connect it up to add infinitum to any software that you might have in your tech stack already. So that is that set of demos. I'm going to leave it on this one. And just to end up, before I hand back over to Chris, I've over these holidays, sort of between starting this business and finishing off with the one that I was running until late last year, I've reflected a bit on my career, and one of the key takeaways is this idea of just starting. Anecdotally, there was something that sticks in my head is in 2016, I was starting a drone videography business, and I spent dozens of hours on the website and business cards, but the first sale came from via a friend on a WhatsApp message, right? So the marketing material and collateral that I spent hours on meant nothing. When I was at Explore AI, early on, we spent months building a course that we were super proud of, but we launched it to a flop because we hadn't validated it first. And we could have spent a couple of hours and far less money and resources up front, just testing, is this positioning right? Is there an audience for it? Is the pricing correct? That sort of thing. So this idea of just starting, where the only real way to learn and where your learning really starts happening at a very high rate is when you get your hands dirty for the first time. You can plan for every eventuality, but you really don't start learning until you start. So I'd like to just end off by framing Kwanda as that AI guide that can help you to just start in your business. So you might be at 0 and you want to get to 1 with some AI implementation, or you might have started already and we can help you accelerate that. So thank you very much. We're not going to have questions now, but please approach Chris and I afterwards for any questions on these implementations or other. And I'm going to hand back over to Chris.